I don't feel good about being white every day.
This is the delivery mechanism.
And I'm just a female, but just a woman, just a white woman.
This is the payload.
If I was a white man, I would be functioning from a point of an even greater privilege.
If I see a group of young men, and they're like kind of boisterous, I get really nervous. And he's like, well, what if they're black guys? And then she's like, no, wait.
They want to use conviction rates to show the percentage of men that engage in sexual crime relative to women. They don't want us to actually look at the racial composition of the men who are going to jail for sexual assault.
And then they create a hierarchy, and it puts straight white guys at the very bottom and all the other men like just above that. And then you get onto the other identities, right?
It is impossible for the CDC, that is the Center of Disease Control, to find 3 years in a row parity in sexual assault victimization with significant amounts of that victimization done by women to men.
I think that it's a fundamental unfairness that women are allowed to vote on policies for warfare that they then don't have to go fight.
Men don't get the vote if they don't sign up. Women get the vote by default. So literally, men actually have less of the right to vote. Not that the vote is a right, because it's not. But they have less of access to the vote than women do.
Keep your vote, but get rid of the narrative that you're a victim relative to men.
So that's the goal. Why I joke about the 19th all the time. I don't think it's going away because women would actually have to vote for that. And I don't think that's going to happen. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame, I guess. Ice shooting, the men's rights detail nobody noticed that changes everything, where we are going to be giving our perspective on the recent incident in Minneapolis involving an ICE officer and an activist that was trying to impede him, and it ended in up with the activist being killed. And of course, this is started a media firestorm, and there have been vigils, there have been riots, there have been fighting in the streets, there have been doxing, there have been allegations of fascism and all kinds of other stuff. And we're going to try and break through the noise and look at this in, as a unique way that we can offer, and also giving some clarity, because there is such a thing as the truth, and we should talk about that.
We should seek it out.
Yes. So,
all right. You want me to do the things?
Do some things before I get into it?
Yes. So if you would like to send us a message, if you have a burning passion to contradict us or say you like us or whatever else, you can go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip and send us a tip and a message with that tip. And it's a better way for you to send it than potentially other ways, because you avoid YouTube's comment enhancement, and you get a little more space to elaborate on your thoughts, on your commentary, and we get whatever benefit of the funds you send. So feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Still haven't put up the fundraiser, but it will be available when it is up at feedthebadger.com/support. And in the meantime, you can always start a subscription at feedthebadger.com/subscribe, or just join us in our group, Discord group at badgernation.online. That's where I post a lot of my links to resources, because YouTube hates links, and sometimes I refer to things that aren't in the low bar. So if you're interested in that, and if you're interested in deeper analyses of the things that we talk about, badgernation.online is where to go. All right, let's I'll just go ahead, Brian. Give us your thoughts and a summary, or summary and your thoughts. Summary.
All right.
Then
So, thoughts. So on January 7th, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, there was a clash between anti-ICE activists and ICE officers that were trying to do their job. And one specific video went viral, and that was of a woman who appeared to have been shot by an ICE officer through the windshield and died. And of course, if that's all you heard, then that would be the story, and everybody would be like, oh, case closed. ICE are terrible people. They've only been telling us this for years on every possible media outlet, everything that had a sound that can come out of it. But it's not as simple as that. So
Nope.
what we originally had some video from people's phones, and those were people who were there, and specifically those were activists that were there that were sort of like on the side of the woman driving the car. And it looked, they were trying to spin it, and people are still doing it now, but we have since gotten body cam
information.
footage after that sort of shows a different picture. Now, from what I know, and I have a lot of stuff here I can show, but I think it's important to like set the stage. So first of all, we have some information. Let's just, before we even get to this day, okay? Ever since the ICE deportations have started, there have been attacks on ICE officers. And the Department of Homeland Security in the States have been hiring, and a lot of people have been getting jobs there. This is a decision. This whole deportation operation was something that was put into place because Americans voted for it. And remember, on the ticket for 2024, and this is important context, there were two options. There was the one that was going to close the border, send the illegals back, cut back on the spending, and essentially keep more money in the pockets of taxpayers. And then there was the party that wanted to kill their babies. And it was divided mostly on gender lines when those votes came out. I mean, there was some overlap or whatever, but there was a big divide in that particular thing. And we've been talking about the gender divide on the voting thing and how women have become more and more radical in recent years, and how that's been reflected in polling and in voting patterns, etc. But it's also been in the case of activism. And so since ICE has been put on the job, and most of these people, by the way, that are doing this enforcement are men. This is important because this is the men's channel. And yes, men are immigrants, but men are also cops, and they are ICE officers, and they are military, and they are first responders, and they're firemen, and they're rangers, and they're medics, whatever, right? So according to official statements from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and ICE, there have been a dramatic reported increase in vehicle-related assaults, such as ramming, hitting, and using vehicles as weapons against ICE agents. Okay, DHS has released statistics highlighting this trend, particularly since early 2025, under the current administration's intensified immigration enforcement operations. Key figures include: from January 21st, 2025 to early January 2026, so this is the last, not even month, it's just been like, it's actually been a year, right? About a year. ICE officers reportedly experienced 66 vehicular attacks compared to just 2 in the same period in the year of 2024, when Joe Biden was in office. Described as a 3,000% increase, 3,200%. Earlier reports through November 2025 cited 28 vehicular attacks against ICE since January 20th versus 2 in the 2024 period, a 1,300% increase. Overall, ICE assaults on ICE agents not limited to vehicles were reported as up over 1,300%, or in some statements, 1,347%, with death threats rising by 8,000%. These numbers come directly from DHS press releases and statements, often attributing the surge to radical rhetoric from sanctuary city politicians, activists, and media that they say encourages resistance and violence against federal officers. And we've actually seen this actually coming out from certain governors like Tim Walz and mayors like Brandon Johnson, like the mayor of Minneapolis, whose name it slips my mind right now. And yes, so
Tim Walz, or
no, Tim Walz is the governor. I was talking about the mayor, the guy who said, "Get the fuck of our city" to ICE, basically threatening them. And of course, these are the people who say these things. They never have to like cash the check that they're writing. It's always like people on the ground that end up having to deal with that stuff. So this is important to point out. Okay, so the individual involved in the in the accident, the actual ICE officer himself, whose name I will not reveal, although he has been doxxed by, lefty activists online. They
also,
revealed his.
well, the thing is that okay, just I think it's okay because even Fox was talking about his name.
Well, now
So
that they put it out there, yeah, I guess
yeah,
so.
I mean, I don't think we can necessarily because it'd be a little bit difficult not to talk about this situation without actually referencing his name. Although I don't, I mean, so that let's just leave it at that. But yeah, this is continue, Brian. Sorry, I just
All
wanted to
right.
say that. I think at this point the
Well,
cat is out of the bag.
Yeah, so the guy's name is out there. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm sure it's in one of my notes somewhere. I
Yeah,
don't think it's super
I'll pull it up.
relevant. Yeah, go
Not
ahead.
at this
But
point, no.
he was, they were posting him online. I think it was the Brian Krasenstein that did it. I actually have it on my phone here because I reposted it and I called it monstrous. And because of the way that they do this, and this is exactly, by the way, this is the same shit they did that got Charlie Kirk killed. And I'm not afraid to say that because it's true. Where let me just find it here. Yeah, here we go. Brian Krasenstein said Jonathan Ross is his name. Stay peaceful. So he gives the guy's name, shows a full HD photo of the dude, even though he's wearing a mask, and then says "Stay peaceful" afterwards. Which that's what I'm saying. Like this kind of like they do this so they can get plausible deniability and say, well, look, I told him to stay peaceful, but if he gets killed by a lunatic, hey, that's just like that's not my problem, right? And it's obvious what they're doing. Like this, they were saying, well, why are these guys wearing masks? Well, I don't know, to protect themselves and their family, because it's not just like, activists that are a problem, or even like illegal immigrants that might get violent when cornered. That's a problem. It's the cartels that are a problem, that are often tied to some of these illegals that are here. It's like there's links to terrorist groups, like the Somalians that live in Minnesota that are sending money back to terror cells. So it's not like this is just like in a vacuum, okay?
No.
But anyway, going back to that guy, well, I'm not bringing up who he is or what happened, or well, like this specific thing about him being doxxed. But it's also important to note that the ICE officer involved in this issue had himself already been attacked. Let me see here. I have the data right here. This is from the Department of Homeland Security, and this is from June. So it's not like they put it out there now to like sort of cover him. This is an older report, and these are the things that people don't know about until something like what happened today happens. Then people start looking into it. So in June 18th, there was today, Department of Homeland Security announced federal law enforcement arrested Roberto Carlos Munoz Guatemala, a serial illegal alien, after he dragged an immigration and customs enforcement officer 50 yards with his car in Bloomington, Minnesota, trying to evade arrest. So, and then the ICE officer, same guy from today, from this story that we're talking about, he was dragged for 50 yards, which is like 150 feet. He had to be hospitalized, and he got over 30 stitches. And then he went back to work. And then he ran into this problem. And so when a woman is threatening to drive into a guy that had already had an experience with a person behind a wheel that didn't want to comply, it's no wonder that he might be a little bit on edge.
Well, it's not even like, okay, if you're done, I think we should go take a look at the footage, and I'm going to
I'm not
show
quite done,
you.
but I can come back. I
No,
have
no,
more
no,
stuff,
no,
but we don't have
that's
to go
fine.
through it all now. It's okay. We can go through the footage now.
Because I want to point out what I think everybody has missed on both the right and the left side. And while I'm not drawing an equivalence between the right and the left narratives, I think it was missed on the right side because it started to spin into its own narrative. And this is actually something that reframes everything that happened and lays to rest whether or not it was a justified use of lethal force. So I'd like to go through the actual event and take a look at the circumstances surrounding the discharge of the firearm. Are we allowed to say shooting? I guess it doesn't matter because we're demonetized and de-algorithmized. So, but anyway, that's what I want to do because I want to point something out that I think has been missed by everyone. And the reason why, when Brian first brought this to me as a topic, I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to be, it's going to be too much political. But then we talked about it and I realized there's a really strong men's rights angle to it. And I was looking at researching it and looking into it and looking at the footage. And after Brian had brought that specific situation up in the past of this officer, I was thinking about that, like how he was bringing to this situation the fact that he had himself almost been in like a fatality, like he'd almost been killed by a car. Like when you're dragged by a car of that length, it's almost like a miracle that you weren't killed 50 yards. That particular scenario has a high likelihood of injury or death. And he survived that, and he had to go to the hospital, get 30 stitches. And I was just, in the back of my mind, I was thinking about that while I reviewed the footage. So do you have the footage up, Brian?
Are we talking about which clip? The last one I sent you? The one
No,
from
the
like
clip
like
of the actual
from the
footage
perspective of the nice officer?
No, from the perspective of the bystanders, the clip of the actual incidents. The original clip that was showed on Fox.
Is it this one here?
Yes, that one.
Okay.
Right. Good job. All right. So
all right. I'll play it.
Yes, expand it as much as you can, and then let's play it.
I can full screen it.
Yes.
Here we go.
And let's see it.
You can see the vehicle there. That's law enforcement pulling up in the pickup.
And it is the Honda Pilot that we should be focused on here. It's about a purplish reddish.
I just want to point out too, see how she's parked perpendicular?
Yeah,
that's a tactic. That's not an accident. They do this specifically to obstruct. Yes.
She's actually blocking their way. She's actually blocking their way. That's verified. But this is what I like. This is the moment where we're going to see something, and I'm going to point it out. And I don't think anybody's talking about it except in passing. So let's watch what's happening.
Okay.
Over here. So let's take a look.
Agent walking up. And then there's another agent. I don't know if you can see that.
Did you see it? Did you see it? I don't
we
think
reach inside the window.
Yes. So if you
slow
look,
it down if you want.
Yeah, slow it down. Slow it way down. Yeah, there we go. Slow it way down. And I want people to watch this. Okay, don't listen to the it's gonna be maybe turn off the commentary. So you see this. Now she backs up, right? She stops, right? Look, and that looks almost like, okay, stop it here. That almost looks like she's complying with what they're telling her to do, which is to get the hell out of the street, right? She stops. He reaches into the window. Now continue in slow motion. See what happens, right? Keep going. Keep going. Do you see that? When he reaches into the window, right? Just let it run. Let it run. Do you see the motion that he's making?
The guy on the guy closer to us.
The guy closer to us who is reaching into the window.
Yeah.
Like he's reaching in, right? Okay. He moves his hand, and then after the shots fire, it's almost like there's something that lets go. And the momentum of that sends him back a bit. Do you see what I'm saying? All right, let's go. Let's look at it again. See if you can see what I'm saying. Watch him slowly. Don't stop it. So his hand goes in. He's trying the lock. He's probably trying to reach to get rid of the lock. For some reason, his hand isn't back. And then, bam, his hand is released. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what did we just see? That guy was almost in the same scenario as the man who shot the protester. His comrade or his colleague was in a scenario where no matter how long it took, it briefly looked like he was trapped and unable to get his hand out of the car. And the man with the gun had already experienced that, right? So in that split second, he probably thought that that's what it was about to happen.
That guy was going to get dragged. And
yeah,
he was
that guy
thinking
was
about
get
himself,
dragged.
but he was thinking about protecting his buddy.
The amount of recoil you see on when he gets his hand back, the amount of recoil suggests that he was actually trapped by something at least for a moment. Now, I'm not sure I'm not a professional analyst. I'm just somebody who is, I've studied motion because I'm an artist and briefly an animator, but that looks like there was something pulling him, and then he got free, and then there was recoil from that, which sent him backwards, right? So something happened in there to make that guy think, and most likely made him think, my colleague is about to get dragged. All right. No, I don't think anybody has noticed that, or at least they haven't brought it out specifically as an important detail. And it is a really critical detail. And I don't think I don't think either on the right, or certainly not on the left, whatever, right? Nobody has stepped through this from the point of view of the vulnerability of these men and what that guy has been through, what the officer who shot has been through. Because again, he experienced nearly dying in that exact scenario that it looks like his colleague was almost in. Right?
Yeah.
But here is the kicker. And this is why I think that when we step through it, when men's rights activists step through it, we see things like this. We see things that other people don't on either side of the aisle. You see that because you can see the vulnerability. And I don't think either side, I don't think the left or the right, for them both, the right less than the left, of course, men are simply heroes or villains, but not people dealing with extremely difficult circumstances. But there's an even more important element to this, and I'm really surprised nobody noticed. This interaction means that this was a justified use of lethal force. 100%. In terms of policy, if somebody starts to accelerate while a law enforcement officer's arm is in their car, that is considered 100% a moment where lethal use is authorized. So this is a case closed situation. This use of lethal force was acceptable according to policy, and it was acceptable according to U.S. self-defense doctrine. If these two were civilians approaching this car, and it wouldn't matter why they put their arm in the car, right? But he was trying to give her instructions to get out of the car, so he had probably shouldn't have. You might have a little bit of a place to argue that, yeah, that wasn't the best strategically for him to have done, but he was within his rights. And let's say these were two civilian men, right? And the same exact scenario, it would be considered a self-defense killing because his arm was in her car and she was driving off, right? And that is such a dangerous scenario that it is considered acceptable use of lethal force in that scenario. So there's no, we can go with all the narratives. She's a terrorist, which is plausible as far as I'm concerned, and all of this and that the ICE are being, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't, again, of course, the narratives on the left that it's an unacceptable use of force. No, it all comes down to this. This woman was about to drag his partner, colleague, in a way that he was just dragged nearly to his death, right? And he made a split decision. And in that circumstance, it is considered acceptable to use lethal force. All right, case closed. Why is nobody talking about this? Right, there's no black, it is completely black and white. Like, he was well within his means, well within his rights to do it, just because of that. And nobody seems to be talking about it. Why? And
well, I think they're talking about it from the perspective of the guy shooting to defend himself, because in the other video, you see the car actually collide with the guy who shoots, and he even doubles over and then fires. So I think that people are looking at that because it's a little bit more like, now that we have I guess you could call it the body cam footage, which I can play as well. The guy who shoots, you can see him get hit and his reaction.
But it doesn't matter. That's the problem. The thing with this is The other angle of this, you could argue, oh, he had room to move, which I don't think he really did. And yes, it does look terrible, right? What she did. You make all these stupid arguments, but none of it matters, because right there, once his arm is in the car and she starts moving forward, his partner is justified in using lethal force to prevent it. The end. And we can have the discussion about where he was positioned, which is ridiculous, but it doesn't matter. Like, this is the legal situation that this entire thing is in. And yeah, I know people focused on him, but maybe they focused on him because it didn't occur to them to walk through that sequence that I walked through it with, which is look at it from his point of view, from what he has experienced in terms of reaction and vulnerability, and see what he's seeing, right? And he's seeing the vulnerability of his colleague to what's about to happen, right? This guy was not motivated by self-defense. He was motivated by defending his colleague, almost guaranteed, right? Well, maybe not almost guaranteed. I can't infer entirely his mental state, but that's what it looks like. So it doesn't matter where he was situated. What matters is that he was defending his colleague from being dragged from something that he had just experienced. Right? This man is a hero, and the woman is a criminal. The woman at the wheel, right? Based on what I am seeing, unless I'm seeing something that's completely fabricated, the woman is not a martyr. She is somebody who put lives in danger. She was the one with the greatest potential of threat in this whole thing. Right? She had access. She was behind the wheel of a 3-ton metal missile. She was the threatening one in this entire scenario. And I think people, they lose track of that. And again, they don't walk through this from the point of view of the men who are experiencing it. And then they miss big details. And yeah, I know she was aimed for him, right? And apparently, and then people are arguing, well, he could have gotten out of the way. And there's all these points where you can pick at that particular narrative. But this is ironclad in black and white. As soon as his arm was in the cab and she started moving away, lethal force is acceptable to stop that, to stop dragging. All right, that's it. That is the end. We don't even need to have a discussion. I mean, we can have a discussion about how the left seems to be inciting this threat narrative around ICE that's causing situations like that. But in terms of whether or not lethal force was acceptable in this situation, it was. There's no way to get away from it. There's no argument. Again, they can argue, oh, he wasn't in front of the car, oh, whatever else. And you can maybe misinterpret it from different angles, but you can't. There's no misinterpretation. Okay, let's keep going. We can look at more.
I want to show the video that recently leaked out today of the same thing from the perspective of one of the officers. And I want you to see the interaction with the driver, because this is actually relevant. So this is them getting out of the car. You see, she's still driving. She's intentionally blocking their path. That's the lady.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change
You're getting the license plate number.
Plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former fucking president. You want to come at us?
I remember the media tried to tell us that this woman was terrified for her life. And you can see that she's confidently and smugly just confronting him, defiant, heroic. And again, I'm not happy that she was killed or anything. I'm not. But I'm trying to break this, because it was a woman, she must have been a victim narrative.
Yes.
Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former fucking president. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I said, go get yourself some lunch, big boy.
So they're like inciting, asking, come after us, right? And I'm going to get into that in a second, because these people, they try, especially the women, they're always trying to get the men riled up. They want the men to attack them because it looks good for the cameras. That's what they're trying to capture. That's why they have their phones out.
Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the
They're trying to antagonize on purpose.
Get out of the car.
So you
Ugh.
see?
Yeah.
So this woman was about to get in the car, and this chick pulled off. This is when the shooting happens. Hits the guy holding the phone. That's the guy who shoots.
Get out of the car.
You see him right there? He doubles over. You can see his face.
Yeah, but this is a different incident, right?
No, it's the same. This is the incident.
I'm pretty
This
sure
is it.
Okay.
This is what
Okay.
happened. There's just another angle.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the same thing from a different angle. And yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that he also was in danger, and this chick was ready to kill him. And I'll say this too: if they did kill these guys, if she killed these men, we would not know about this. It would not go on. It wouldn't be on the news. It wouldn't be talked about. Full stop. We wouldn't know. And for all I know, people have been killed trying to do their job. Probably.
Of course.
But we're not going to hear about it because it doesn't fit the narrative.
No. No, and
So,
we're not going to fear.
Only
Well, and
because
also
these
it
guys
doesn't-
are alive, and only because they defended themselves do we know. Like, I didn't know the guy had been dragged for 50 yards and had to get 30 stitches. We only learned that because of this. So it was like, oh, okay, well, you see what I'm saying? Like, do you understand how
Yeah.
the
100%.
the narrative opens right up when it's time for these people to put out a certain kind, and then you have to do some digging after that, and then you find out, oh, well, this isn't that simple, right?
No,
So
it isn't. Well, it's not as simple as anybody has made it out to be. Right.
Yeah.
And like I said, you could maybe make the argument about lethal force when she's driving towards him that he wasn't really in her sights or something. But ultimately that the arm in the car thing just made it's a legitimate use of lethal force, the end. And then this is all just adding layers of complicity and malice to it.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, this woman, she engaged in an attempted murder.
Yes.
Alleged. I don't know. Can we say it? I mean, look at the video footage. I'll say an alleged attempted murder. And honestly, if her partner doesn't end up doing time for being an accessory, then justice will not have been served.
We'll see. I mean, I hope
Yeah.
so, but yeah, we'll see. I got a
Regardless
super
of the
cow.
narrative.
What was that?
Yeah, go ahead. Regardless of the narratives, like
Yeah,
this
regardless.
is just
Richard
purely
Bia
an
gave us
issue.
$5 and says, from what I've seen, it seems like many of these activists engage in the magical thinking that if they just make the right mouth sounds in the correct sequence, they will cause law enforcement officers to just go away. Right up there with so many sovereign citizen roadside traffic stops. No matter how many times the tactic fails, there's always someone else who will try the same thing because obviously the previous one didn't execute it correctly. Skill issue. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard, for that comment. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, like, okay. So let's talk a little bit about. I want to talk a little bit about who this is and what this tactic is. So here's another example of incitement, and they almost always use women for this. So this is a different day, different place. This is Whipple Ice Facility, and a woman screaming at men, asking the men in ice to shoot her. And they do this because they're hoping that you actually try something. Okay. It's a really low volume, but she is saying, shoot me. And it's like this old, like, grandma. So, and why am I bringing this up? Because the purpose of this stuff is to get people to react. And this is a common tactic that these radical groups have been doing for a long time. If they can get you to take the bait, which is what they're doing, right? Albatross gave us $5, super child. Thank you, Albatross. If you meant to say something, go ahead and put in a comment and I'll read it.
Why the heck is Albatross in particular having problems with this? Yeah.
Oh, he may have just put like a maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he meant to.
If you put a comment in, just put it in the chat and we'll read it out.
Yeah, I'll just put it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, keep going, Brian. Sorry for interrupting.
So anyway, yeah, this is a tactic that's done because what they try to do is they try to win the hearts of people who are not involved, like the normies that watch the news and TV and they're on the internet. So when you have a woman, and then the more harmless they're perceived to be, the better it is, because if it's like some old lady and she's like, shoot me. Now, of course, no one's gonna do it, but at some point someone is going to respond, or someone is going to take it too far, like why we're talking about this today. And they're going to get hurt, or they're or whatever, maybe even get killed. And if that happens, then the media goes into overdrive. The celebrities come out, and basically it serves the purposes, right? And they're willing to let people get hurt or killed for this. I mean, George Floyd he was not an activist. He was not involved politically with anything. He was just a guy, like a petty criminal that lived in Minneapolis, and he died. And it served the sort of activist class perfectly. And we had to hear about it for years. And there were riots, and there were there was grifting, and money was taken, and jobs were lost, and all kinds of injuries. And it went on and on. And now it's the next thing. It's all about creating a chaos constantly, and part of the purpose of that is to demoralize you guys, to make you think there's no getting out of this, things are only getting worse. But I think this is a minority. I think most people are still trying to just get on with their life. And I think that this particular incident is not going to have the same impact as the George Floyd thing did. But so, like, this woman, she was part of an organization called Immigrant Defense Project, which specifically ICE Watch. And ICE Watch has a map, like a roadmap of places where ICE facilities are, and where they're sort of like hotspots. And what they do is they go to those places and they cause disruption. They block the roads. They, think about like any other videos you've seen of climate activists sitting on highways, or going into museums and like defacing art or something like that. I mean, that's another example, but these people do the same thing, but they're specifically tasked with making ICE's life a living hell for as long as they're trying to get their work done. Even though, again, this is all something that people voted for, and I shouldn't even have to be on here defending that, because we voted for it and it should just be getting done. But of course, they have to make it political because that's what they do. And this woman, and again, this isn't necessarily reflecting on anything, but her partner is the other woman that was in the car with her, and the media is making her sound like a victim. They're using everything in their quiver, as it were. She's female, she's a lesbian, she has children, which I think only reflects on her, if anything, for her to go over here and do this stuff when she has kids to raise. And all of this other stuff, like, oh, how could you do this? You guys are monsters. She was a poet. Didn't you know? And this is all it obviously to paint this kind of picture. And here's an article from the New York Post. Renee Nicole Good was Minneapolis ICE Watch warrior who trained to resist feds before shooting. So this is like what they do. She's not just a bystander. She's not innocent. She knew what she was doing. She was a grown-ass woman. She left her kids somewhere to go do this, and she never came back home. And that's a shame. But she's not an innocent bystander in any of this stuff. And this kind of agitation is not new, but I can come back to that a little bit later.
Well, the other thing is that when you're putting yourself in scenarios, like there's appropriate resistance. I think that, for example, what the trucker protest in Canada was doing was very peaceful and didn't involve anything like this. And then there's putting yourself in harm's way, and yet they still got forcibly shut down. And then there's putting yourself in harm's way like this. Like, deliberately putting yourself in a circumstance where you are in a position where lethal force is acceptable to use, right? That's what she was doing. And again, if this hadn't been an ICE officer, if this had just been a man or a woman, two women, two men, it's two civilians in this situation, they would have had every right to respond to her with lethal force in the US for what she did, what was happening. Okay, so this isn't even defending ICE. It's basically defending people's right to self-defense. And no offense, but ICE officers also have a right to self-defense. They're not just props you can write your narratives on. They're actual people, actual men, who are dealing with a lot of crap. And yeah, I assume that there's somebody on the left who came into the normal chat and said, the Flame 5919, ICE being the right is pure technicality. You all know what ICE operating like this in the first place is also wrong. Two wrongs create even more wrong. It's all demoralizing. Is ICE's operations that significantly different than what they were? I remember somebody was concerned about a deportation that they felt was illegal, and I'm like, and then there was all this narrative from both sides, and I'm like, well, yeah, you want to have oversight, right? You don't want to deport actual US citizens. And if there is, like, if they have overreached, you should have channels to redress it. That's good. But it seemed like there was no position where you could take where enforcing immigration is something a state needs to do in order to survive, especially if it wants to offer any kind of services to its citizens. Like if we were in, I don't know, Ancapistan, and there was absolutely no taxes, nobody paid anything, and no services, maybe you could just have people flowing in and out, right? Because there's not going to be an issue with someone appropriating resources that the native born citizens have paid for. Nor is there going to be a situation where the state goes bankrupt doing that, right? And then there's also no incentive for vote farming, really. So yeah, you can do that, but we don't live in that kind of a situation, either the US or Canada. We live in a situation where there are comprehensive services for citizens. So if you bring people in who aren't citizens, they're going to appropriate those services unless you have a really strict control. So it's a situation where you have to have, like, a state has to control immigration into itself. And that's not even getting into all of the issues in terms of different cultural expectations and moral frameworks, because, I know this is really difficult for people who were born and raised in weird cultures, right? Not everybody has the same general ethical schema as Western and Northern Europeans and their descendants. Just saying, we're not, our baseline, not something that everybody buys into, which is funny because, the people who are pro-immigrate, or not pro-illegal immigration, basically, would argue that they are different, but only in good ways, not necessarily in the bad ways that might be incompatible with a weird culture. So there's, I'm not even getting into that. There's all kinds of issues that uncontrolled immigration causes, and we're also seeing decreases in wages, increases in standard of living, all of that stuff. So a state that wants to remain in existence has to be able to control immigration into itself, right? That's a non-negotiable. It's basically like sewers and other forms of infrastructure. It's a non-negotiable, and we can discuss how that should be taken, how we should conduct ourselves while that's being done. But it's a non-negotiable that it has to happen. And if you are somebody who does not understand that, you realistically can't be part of the discussion, right? If you can't come into the discussion understanding that immigration as an essential function of controlling immigration is an essential function of a society, unless you're willing to embrace pure Ancapistani, and I don't think most of you are, who are this pro illegal immigration, unless you can understand that, you're always going to bring a framework into the discussion that anything ICE does is illegitimate, right? Anything Homeland Security does is illegitimate. I mean, not just getting rid of a completely harmless female men's rights activist who's just trying to put on a goddamn convention. That we could have a discussion about that's, but anything Homeland Security it does is wrong, right? Is wrong. And I bring that up because it's funny, because I can understand that, right? I can understand that the U.S. has every right to patrol its borders and determine who decides who is allowed to be in their borders, while being individually upset that I feel like that wasn't applied justly in my case. But yet the U.S. does have a right, right? Okay. They have the right to kick me out. I think it was wrong, but they have the right to do that. They have the right to maintain their borders. They have the right to export people who come in illegally for whatever reason. Like they don't have to be rapists and child molesters and criminals and part of cartels. If you're there illegally, you're there illegally. You're the country where you're occupying illegally has a right to remove you. The end. So anybody who can't understand that can't have a reasonable discussion about this. And for those of you who are, men's rights adjacent or interested in the issues that we talk about, I think you need to have a real good a good long thunk about why you have a problem with things like immigration policy or anti-illegal immigration policy, right? Why you have a problem with that. And also, generally, if you have a problem with that, you usually also have a problem with the police, right? So why do you have a problem with that particular manifestation of what is essentially a male drive? And this is where I'm going to get into the men's issues thing. Men police other men, right? They police them for their illegal behavior, their unethical behavior, their immoral behavior, their behavior that's antisocial, even their behavior that isn't pro-socially providing and protecting for others. Men police men. ICE is policing men, also women, as we see here, it's probably why this is blown up, right? Because it's ICE policing women and engaging in lethal force when a woman is being very, very dangerous, let's say. And
they're seizing on an opportunity. There have probably been lots of videos of, like ICE arrests that have maybe gotten spicy or whatever. But this, because it involved a woman that you could paint as a, simple normie passerby, that's why it got legs and went as far as it did.
I'm seeing a lot of pain in the other lesbian woman's face there. I don't know where that's coming from. I think
that's just like the female version of the soy face. But I got Albatross got back to us with his comment. Let me just read it. And then he sent a super chat with the same thing. So you didn't have to do that thing, but thank you, Albatross. He says, this incident reminds me of previous episodes where y'all said that women don't really take their violence unto men very seriously because they're mostly sheltered from it. So they never FAFO. Yes, that's what I'm saying. When Antifa protests are going on, and look, just for the record, my goal is not to make this political, but I'm just looking at observable reality. When there are riots and there are violent protests, they are usually leftist ones. Sorry, like the truckers weren't burning down buildings. They were just
they honestly
horns, right?
They weren't left or right, honestly.
No,
like they were just tired of the crap.
Well, maybe not, Allison, but again, those guys don't get to decide where they get framed.
No, they don't.
Justin Trudeau framed them. He called them Nazis and white supremacists. Guess what that means? They're on the right.
Nothing.
And they get debanked. It doesn't matter what they call themselves. It's what they get labeled. I'm sorry, guys. Rule number one, you don't get to decide what you are. The people who are trying to destroy your life do. And they just do that and they act on that. You can't convince them, hey, guys, I'm one of you. I just don't agree with this thing. Well, guess what? You're not one of us because you do agree with this thing. Right? So, but anyway, I'm getting off track. It's usually women at the front, and they do this as part of their tactic because they operate under the presumption, and I don't think it's an inaccurate one, that as women, they're not going to get the shit kicked out of them because it doesn't look good. And if somebody does try to kick the shit out of them or manhandle them or throw them aside, it's kind of like those fights that women start in public, so that if the man reacts and everyone else sees it, they immediately activate, right? That's exactly what they're counting on. So yes, Albatross, you're right. Sometimes it does. There are consequences. There is such a thing as FAFO or equal rights, equal lefts or whatever. But unfortunately, we still live in a time in history where if a man does, even to protect himself, hurt a woman, then everyone is going to descend on the man. And they're going to immediately ignore whatever the woman was doing.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yes, indeed. Ultimately, what I'm trying to bring up is if this was an acceptable use of force, it was, according to policy. And I mean, I could, and we don't even have to we don't have to argue about where he was positioned, where his feet were. It was an acceptable use of force when his partner or colleague reached in. Okay, so the key overlooked fact is that at the critical moment, one ICE officer's arm is inside the SUV while the driver begins to move the vehicle forward. Under standard U.S. use of force doctrine, a moving vehicle with an officer's limb inside is a textbook lethal threat scenario because of the risk of dragging or crushing, which makes deadly force generally considered objectively reasonable at that point. Why this makes the shooting legally justified? Once she moves the car with his arm in the cab, the legal question is not whether she actually hits or drags him or the other officer, but whether a reasonable person in Ross's position would fear imminent death or serious injury to himself or his colleague, which he obviously did. And again, you right here, you can also put some emotional motive. This is exactly the scenario that nearly killed me, right? Okay, by that standard, and even setting aside imperfect tactics before that moment, you conclude that this was a legitimate use. You can conclude that this was a legitimate use of force, lethal force. If two civilians were in the same configuration, the same self-defense logic would apply. Narratives versus male vulnerability. You see the dominant framings. ICE executed an innocent observer on the left, and terrorists tried to run over agents on the right. Both of these, I think, missed the core. Two men in a lethal bind, one trying to protect the other, right? And all of it, there is no argument now, and there shouldn't be, right? There's no argument now. This was an acceptable use of lethal force. Now we can talk about who is putting people in this situation, who is constructing this mess, right? Who is constructing this chaos that can turn lethal at a moment's notice. Okay. Left-wing ISIS fascist threat narratives are creating the mental environment in which she was present, non-compliant, and primed to see agents as existentially dangerous, raising the probability of a panicked, lethal-looking move, or even a calculated lethal move, which is that's starting to emerge, isn't it? That this wasn't just panicked. This was calculated. This was a calculated move, potentially. At the same time, okay, at the same time, I feel like we lose something when we take this incident and use it as fuel for more political narratives on either side, while admitting like the reason why this is happening, the reason why this is getting so high, like that the energy is so, what is the way to frame that, Brian? It's just like something's in the air, like things are just getting really dangerous. And do you know how to frame that? Like
reaching a fever pitch.
Yeah, reaching a fever pitch. The reason why this is happening is because of this rhetoric around ICE and immigration. And again, what I was trying to get at before the Albatross super chow was this is a reaction to what men do Like let's bring it down and look at it from the point of view of things that are like evolution. Men are evolutionarily wired, behaviorally wired to do, and this is one of them. Police borders, police the people inside borders. Like, and this is something that men do that is absolutely critical for the maintenance of society in every capacity. We wouldn't have societies if we didn't have men making sure that, you know, they weren't being invaded and they weren't full of criminals taking advantage of people who are just trying to get by. Right. And this is particularly a male thing. And you know, it's a male thing because feminists and other women who believe that the world would be better if it was run by women think that this behavior by men, well, they explicitly recognize it as masculine, and they think if they stop it, somehow a utopia will fall out. That somehow men's policing is what's causing criminals. Men's policing is what's causing illegal immigrants. Men's policing is what's causing the Huns to be at your gate. It's like, no. And not just that, that ability and desire to police goes beyond other human beings into the world, like going into the world and making infrastructure, even at cost, the risk of self. You know, it's all sort of the same thing. And what's interesting to me is that in particular, the left's narrative here is calling out and framing as terroristic something that men do. Do you get what I'm saying, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems very consistent with this idea that the future is female and we're going to construct a utopia out of feminine impulses, which I don't think that's happening. But anyway, what we have here is this entire complex of condemnation and threat narrativing, and it has constructed a situation where people like this think it's sensible to go and put ICE agents at physical risk, right? And that's
Well,
I mean,
they've been
it's
sufficiently dehumanized too,
yeah,
and they're
they've been
men, so it's a really short trip.
yeah, it's a very short trip, and they're men
Mm-hmm.
doing something that men do. That's what I'm getting at. So ICE agents are men. They're doing something that men do that is explicitly masculine, which is policing norms, policing borders, okay, policing. And they're also being framed as doing it against the vulnerable. So yeah, it's a very short trip.
Yep.
It's a very short trip for men in this situation. And it's appalling that there's a group of people that is doing it. There's one thing to make sure, like I said before, it's one thing to have oversight. There's one thing to make sure that, you know, procedures are followed, you know, and that this isn't an excess use of force. But honestly, while I'm very sympathetic to oversight, I can't figure out what's going on here. All I see is a group of people building up this giant threat narrative against men who are trying to do a job. Okay. And I see that the group of people that are building up this threat narrative generally seem to dislike men a lot. You know what I mean, Brian? It's like they just really don't like men. They don't like what men do. They don't like women being in relationships with men. They just don't like it. They really don't like it. So is this the one moment where they're right about men and a group of men who are doing something that men do? Is this like the clock is right 2 times or twice a day kind of situation? Or are they once again just condemning something because it's a bunch of men doing it and it's something that men do? Huh? Like, and
yeah,
I'm pretty sure. And then the other thing is that what's happening on the side of the left? Like, why is there all of these people who are so open to doing stuff like this? And it's not just lesbian couples. It's a lot of young men too, who are no doubt going to battle against the evil orky icy horse forces, you know, the evil ice orcs. And so where's that coming from? And I think if I could make an overall prognostication,
Again, I think it's coming from the same place that the threat narrative is coming from, this condemnation of men, right? You have this whole narrative that the society has been laboring under, that men oppress women for their own benefit, which, well, what happens to people's relationships with each other when that is the predominant narrative? When men oppress women, you can't be a woman and be in a relationship with a man. He's going to oppress you, right? You can't be a man wanting to be in a relationship with a woman. What's that? That's oppression. That's the worst thing ever. So it's like destroys people's relationships with each other, destroys their relationships with themselves, destroys their identities. And it also destroys the process, what drives people to participate in the collective project that is civilization, which is, a young man meets a young woman, they get together, they want to have a family, they want to produce or create some kind of life together, and then they start building. Well, that's where does that impulse go to define yourself through your productivity, right? Where does that go in this system? It's completely delegitimized. So where do these people find a positive identity? What? Well, they find it in these narratives that they can go be heroes. They can go be modern day Aragorn swinging their sword against the icy orcs. Like, that's where they find it. And so the left has constructed the narrative that manufactures its own troops. And I don't know. It's just so yeah, okay. I'm just putting that out there. You can push back if you want, Brian, on anything I've said.
No, it's fine. I mean, I think the men everywhere are just looking for a place where they can be like essentially see a heroic narrative, and leftism looks appealing to some, so they go with that, even though they're not aware that those people hate them. Richard Bier gave us a super chow. What?
Well, they're more interested, like hating men for a lot of men is very abstract compared to being the one good man, which is very concrete. Like, and in fact, how can you be the one good man?
No, you can be the man that isn't like the other men.
Yes. How can you be the one good man swinging your sword against the ice orcs if you don't recognize that all other men are lesser and immoral and fallen? It's like it's a precondition. The only guys who get away from that are guys who actually don't regard other men. They don't believe it when the people say, "Hey, other men are terrible people," and they're like, "No, well, I'm not, and the men I know aren't." But those guys are apparently very, very few and far between. But go ahead, go do the super.
I got a super chow from Richard Bier. He gave us 5, and he says a thing about the truckers in Canada is that when the skull crackers were deployed, they all went in with no identifying markings on their uniforms. Yes. And then Telemnar gave us $20 and 500. So thank you, Telemnar. Really appreciate that. What?
I'm just trying to figure out where the heck he put the 500. I didn't think that was possible.
And he
Congratulations,
said, I, for one, am surprised, astonished, nay, gobsmacked that a pair of far-left women operating on an ideological basis made a foolish decision. Yes, my gobs have also been smacked. My foundeds have been dumbed. My structs have been thundered. My gasteds, my flabbers are gasted. All right. Anyway, thank you for that. I think that's all of the super chats and super chows.
Okay, he managed to support a fundraiser that isn't open. This is like an existential. How did you do that, sir? Wow, that's thank you for that generous support to a fundraiser that isn't open. I would like to know how you did that. That's interesting.
Is there so somebody says politics is fun but exhausting. I was never trying to make this about politics. I was trying to talk about the male-female dynamic.
Yeah.
But the truth is that the political part of this is unavoidable because feminism is inherently political, even if it's based in emotion and all that. But it's like a giant financial grift and it's a power grab. but it does operate in that sphere as well. So you end up having to like address it on some level, but I'd rather not do that, you know?
Well, let me put it this way, okay? This entire idea industrial complex that is feminism, it constructs the preconditions for these kind of radical foot soldiers, and also the single people who end up overwhelmingly voting Democrat. So it's sort of terraforming the social sphere to its liking. And it's I know that it is very political in a way. And I know that this is sometimes really I know that I'm trying to convey something that can be very difficult to understand, but it is what it is. The thing is that this is why I say that it's it is political, but it doesn't really have ethics, if that makes sense. It doesn't really have principles. I still
No.
see that there are principles related to what
I
we
don't
would
think
consider
politics
liberal.
have to have principles. A lot of time they're just means of
Tribalism.
exerting
Yeah.
power. And they could be,
Exactly.
yeah, well, most politics in the world are just tribes. Like that's what
Mhm.
most of it is. We're the ones that are fortunate enough to have a kind of post-enlightenment setup. But like there are people who have lost elections in Minnesota who are Somali, and they lost even in a majority Somali community because he was in the wrong Somali tribe. And there was an
Mhm.
opposing tribe, even though they're from the same country and they look the same. And normally people vote like that along racial lines. They're like, no, he's in a bad tribe. We're not voting for him, and he didn't win. So, like, I
Mhm.
think just as an aside, like most people are tribal. Like we're lucky, but even then, there's a lot of tribalism here as well.
Well, we're
So
getting ideological tribalism, and
yeah, it's just, well, same thing. It doesn't matter. Like it's all
what
the
I'm trying to
same.
get at is this sort of complex, this idea industrial complex, basically the feminist one, is its own kind of self-supporting tribe, right? And its approach to politics is incredibly tribal. It's it's a destruction of the things that make a society productive, but at the same time as it manufactures its own voting base, it manufactures its own foot soldiers. And I don't think it really reflects the kind of politics that are healthy in a society. So it came from the left, it came from liberals, but I don't think it is those kinds of ethics, because I still think there is a space for, openness, self-doubt, and all of the liberal principles that are good that they don't have. They've just metastasized into this political tribe that perpetuates itself and seeks power and clout and money. And that's what it is at this point. And it has an enemy and it has its threat narratives. And it doesn't really have principles, because principles you might have to extend to the enemy. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about back to this. So first of all, her children. Apparently she has kids, or at least a kid. Maybe it's just a kid. Let me see here. Yeah, so she has a child, and her child attends a charter school, and I wanted to show you guys the charter school a little bit. So this is like our mission. The Southside Family Sent Charter School is a small K-5 school that meets the needs of culturally and ethnically diverse population by engaging children in critical thinking and problem solving, involving children in political and social activism, encouraging creative expression, offering a wide range of activities, and advocating for children and families. So it goes on, but it's basically a social justice education charter school for children. And I think she might be a teacher there, but don't quote me on that. I just know that her child attends it. And I'm doing this to paint a picture of like where this woman's brain is at, or where her head is at on stuff. And so she's part of this group called Ice Watch. I guess her brother-in-law in like another interview was like against her going up there and doing this. She's from Missouri, so like her vehicle has Missouri plates, her SUV. And she drove all the way up to Minneapolis. If you guys don't know, Missouri is like on the south. I believe it's a southern state. and Minneapolis is like bordering Canada, I believe. So yeah, she drove up there to do this, and she was very committed to the bit, is what I'm saying. So this is not an innocent bystander. I'm just reinforcing that. Important to note, because this is the narrative they're going to put out there, right? It's not gonna. She still has the woman card, so I'm not acting like that's not a thing. The other thing is that there is a lot of like black pilling going on. Like, oh my God, things are getting so bad. It's gotten so much worse. Things are really ramping up. Civil war, blah blah blah. I just want to point out that this is something that's always happened. We've always had these kinds of things all throughout history. There's always going to be movements that are going to try and disrupt the social order so they can seize power or cause chaos or something. And I want to give you guys a few examples, and you'll notice a pattern because a lot of them are feminist, actually most of them. And they go all the way back. So first, this is the Weather Underground. So the Weather Underground was a radical leftist group splintered from Students for Democratic Society. Notice they always give themselves really nice sounding names like, you know, we believe in freedom. We're the Freedom, Liberation, Good Things Party, but they're communists, right? Inspired by communist and anti-imperialist ideologies, they conducted over 25 bombings targeting U.S. government buildings, police stations, the Pentagon, and the Capitol to protest the Vietnam War because it was racist and imperialist or something. In 1970, they bombed the New York City police headquarters, and in 1975, they targeted the State Department. Members evaded federal agents through underground networks and clashed with law enforcement during arrests. All these groups that I'm also going to mention also engaged in this kind of like organized antagonism where they would try to get police or get law enforcement or first responders or whatever, ICE, which because the current thing is immigration this year. And it's all about getting them antagonized and to react so that they can like get it on tape and frame themselves as victims. The Weather Underground was also a radical feminist organization as well, and there are a bunch of women involved with that. So that's one group. The other one, next one I have here is the Black Liberation Army, an underground Marxist-Leninist offshoot of the Black Panther Party. So not the Black Panthers, it's different, okay? Focused in Black liberation through armed struggle. They assassinated police officers, including ambushes on law enforcement in New York and San Francisco, and conducted bank robberies to fund operations. In 1971, they killed 2 New York police officers in a targeted attack, viewing police as enforcers of systemic oppression. Sound familiar? The group also aided prison breaks and resisted federal investigations. Okay? Next, we have what the Politico is describing as the first female terrorist group. Okay? These are called the May 19th Communist Organization. I believe they were also associated with Weather Underground and Black Liberation. That's why I'm bringing this up, because it's all together. So they are a communist revolutionary group formed by former Weather Underground and Black Liberation Army members. They bombed federal sites, including the U.S. Capitol in 1983, which caused $1 million in damage, an FBI office, and the Navy Yard in Washington, D.C. Their actions aimed to overthrow capitalism and support anti-imperialist causes. They also facilitated prison escapes like that of Assata Shakur in 1979. I believe that's Tupac's mom, obstructing federal custody. I think it is. I have to look that up. I'm curious now. Assata Shakur. Okay. So that's them. And again, radical feminist organization. They have a history of violence. And I'm only going through like the 60s and 70s. So there's like stuff going back to like the turn of the century as well, right? All right. So next, we have the Symbionese Liberation Army, a leftist revolutionary group with communist influences, known for the 1974 kidnapping of Patty Hearst and bank robberies to fund a people's army. They assassinated a school superintendent and engaged in shootouts with police, including a 1974 LA confrontation where 6 members died resisting arrest. Their manifesto called for violent overthrow of the government. Okay, next, I have 2 more and then I'll be done. So I don't want to I know that this is going a little bit long, but we have the United Freedom Front, the UFF, a Marxist-Leninist group that bombed corporate and military targets, including Mobil Oil headquarters and IBM offices, to protest U.S. imperialism and apartheid. In the 1980s, they targeted federal buildings and clashed with law enforcement during robberies. Members were arrested in 1984 after evading FBI pursuits. They claim responsibility for over 20 bombings. And then lastly, we have, this one's a little on the nose, but the Red Army faction, Influence in U.S. 1970s. While primarily West German, this communist terrorist group inspired U.S. radicals and had loose ties through international leftist networks. U.S.-based sympathizers engaged in bombings and obstructions. For example, in 1972, they influenced attacks on U.S. military facilities in Germany, but domestic echoes included solidarity actions disrupting federal operations. And this is just from 1960s and 1970s. And I'm saying that because I wanted you guys to just get a little bit of perspective that this is actually not what's happening now is not as bad as what we have had in the past. And I think that we are able to like keep it under control and put it in perspective. So we're talking about bombings, assassinations. I mean, there have been assassinations, like we've had that happen, and it does seem like things are ramping up, but I think that things have been a lot worse in the past. So but I
think that there's I
go ahead.
will push back on. I think there's a lot more general problems in terms of birth rate, family formation, relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say. So there may be more foot soldiers for these people to start recruiting because of that. So did you sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Finish off what your thought.
No, it's okay. Yeah. Oh, by the way, this Asada Shakur is Tupac's godmother.
Ooh.
So she's related to Tupac, yes.
Yeah.
And she lived in Cuba. I think she was like an escapee that fled to Cuba to escape prosecution after she was broken out. So but yeah, no, that was it. I just wanted to like put things in perspective. Yes, we have problems, but I'm asking you guys, please don't be blackpilled, because that's what they want. They want you to think it's all hopeless, and it's just not. So keep the faith.
Well, it's not. It's if at some point the pain gets sufficient that they start to correct the font, the source of all of this, which is the messaging around relationships between men and women, then we will have a chance. Like,
yeah.
But until then, things are going to probably get worse. But eventually, and not just like the tip of the spear. That's the sort of the minimal thing. It's the lack of relationship formation. It's the lowering birth rate. It's the lack of economic productivity and all of that other stuff. Like that's sort of where the big part is, in my opinion. This stuff is on the edges. But anyway, do you want to we did have a second topic, but I'm not sure if we have time for it. What do you think?
It's kind of I watched the video. It's pretty like shocking.
It's shocking.
But it could be it's kind of I think it's kind of a big topic potentially, but it is a good one.
Yeah, I know. It's the issue
up to
is
you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to do a show Monday, so that's
yeah.
So it would be Wednesday before we could do it again. That's the thing. So
I don't know. I mean, I think it's still good, but it's up to you. It's up to you.
All right. So if we should do it now or just do it at another date, or you could do it. Yeah, or you could do it on a Tuesday, right?
I could cover it as a news story for sure, but I mean
sure.
the video is where a lot of the juice is at. So I think that it would be good for a video response. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because what we're talking about is recently there was a woman arrested in relation to the
She was a special education teacher.
And she was arrested because she groomed and sexually assaulted or raped, statutorily raped a underage boy. And
special education boy.
A special education boy, and how this was framed and what her family said about it is just, it's astounding.
Yeah. What the family said was astounding. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It deserves the men's rights drubbing, shall we say? Is it drubbing? The men's rights caning,
pummeling.
just
Yep.
to get down into the depths of absolute depravity of this entire nest of people. But yeah, it is getting pretty late in the evening. So big thanks to Telenar for somehow
Donating to a non-existent fundraiser.
yes, thank
Giving,
you.
I
Like
mean.
that
Yeah.
is some level of commitment there. And if you also want to try your hand at donating or supporting a fundraiser that doesn't exist, feedthebadger.com/support. Thank you. And if you want to send a message and gast my flabbers a little less, that sounds awful. It sounded better when you did it. Flabbers. Okay, if you
Smack
want
my
to
gobs.
smack my still not
Pound
good.
my gums.
Found my dumbs. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a little bit less. Yeah. Then send us a message at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And yeah, whatever you want to send, very best way to send your message, very best way to give us a tip, because you don't send your message through YouTube's comment squirrels, and you send it to our squirrels, which are superior squirrels. They're the best squirrels, the best. And feedthebadger.com/justthetip to do that. And or badgernation.online if you want to find out about our resources and have more in-depth conversations about these things. All right, I'm going to hand it back to Brian.
All right, I got to
have the
read a
final
couple
word.
of Rumble rants that I got, and then I'll wrap it up. So hold on just a moment here. I'm going to turn off the auto scene switcher thing. Okay, so tell him Novafan21 gave us $1 and said, "Women activists get offended at something and provoke a white knight to save her. Stedman rescues her by policing. Woman blames policing for them not having utopia. Men need to stop simping." Yes. Novafan then says for another $1, also cue the meme of the guy that can't believe he did something that he already knows frustrates him, but did it anyway and is also confused. All right.
Can I just the reason why men simp is because the reason why they do these things is often women.
Mm-hmm.
Like the reason why they're patrolling the boundary, why? Women. The reason why they're going after criminals, why? So it's safe for women. So it really becomes a double bind when you see a woman encouraging invasion and being a criminal. What do you do? Right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks, Novafan. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough out there. But okay, so if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame. And we will talk to you all in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.